So I decided to do my presentation on wine flavor chemistry. This topic is of interest to me because I am not 21, I'm 22, but so I'm of age and I really enjoy wine and I'm wondering if I would enjoy wine tasting. How much of it is like legit science and how much of it is just people saying funny fancy words, how it relates to class. Are there chemical factors in a glass of wine that impact the way it is perceived? So, an interesting way that a way that people identify aromas in wine is kind of similar to how we identified aromas in our lab. So they do gas chromatography, which separates the aroma compounds from the wine, and that's we've already done this portion, gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, to identify the chemicals with a library. But then what this process adds is olfactometry, where a human smells each of the chemicals as they are released, and they are trained to be able to identify very small amounts of more potent chemicals that humans are better at identifying than maybe we are at identifying on a mass spectrometer. These processes are used in tandem to build a set of volatile aroma compounds present in any given wine. So, one of the studies that I looked at would create a matrix out of a red wine and a white wine. So, they would take all of the smelly parts out and store them for later. And then they would add the smelly parts from the opposite color. So, this would be a red wine with white volatile molecules. And then this was a white wine with red volatile molecules. And then there was a panel of, I think, wine students, and they smelled each of the wines and they were able to see them. They were able to see, oh, this looks like red wine. And then they said it smelled like red wine, even though it had the volatile molecules from the white wine, and vice versa. Also, the aromas were identified using GCO. Um, these are some compounds that elicit specific tastes. So these are what you would find in just the matrix part, none of the aroma compounds. So sweetness, glucose, fructose, ethanol, glycerol. Sourness is like all of the acids, and then saltiness is more of like the minerals, the cations, so potassium, magnesium, sodium. Umami isn't really present a ton in wine, but when they're training you to be able to identify umami tastes, they use monosodium glutamate. And then for bitterness, it's phenolics, peptides, and ethanol that mainly contribute to a bitter taste. And so, blind wine tasting has people describe the taste, the smell, which is mostly composed of alcohols, acids, ethyl esters, acetates, and ethanol. And then they can identify the astringency, or that's another factor. Like, these are the different senses. And then if you are a sommelier, you can identify the country, the year it was produced, the grape variety. And 92% of people that are trying to be a master sommelier actually are able to identify those things. So this is a blind tasting match from 2017. And you can see that these people are actually really good at pretty consistently getting fully correct, if not partly correct answers for both red wines and white wines, and these were wines that they were not able to see, so color didn't play a factor. So, this was a study that a lot of people said was proof that, wine tasting and all of that was junk science. And it was when these 54 tasters that were reached out to by Brochet, they were just students of wine. Like, they were students at a university, and when they saw a white wine that was colored red with an odorless dye, they said it smelled like red wine. Kind of like the study that we were looking at earlier. And so people were like, well, that's proof it's all junk because they can't tell a white wine from a red wine. But in this case, where you have masters of the craft that have been able to identify individual compounds, like they have to identify the vineyard that it came from, and different things like that. And so they were able to identify the grape varieties and the countries for 4 of the 6 wines. And tasters who did well on reds also did well on whites. And most tasters who messed up on a wine, they all messed up on the same wine. So it was just harder to identify than others. These are some of my sources. These are the sources that I looked at. And yeah,